All right. So yeah, so let's continue on. So what we want to focus on is, the fire protection systems. So realize when we talk about fire protection systems, it could be as simple as, something like this. If the facility is small enough, it's just fire extinguishers. That is their fire protection system. So something that has nothing to do with water, okay? The facility is small enough, they don't have a fire sprinkler system, anything like that. This is their fire protection system. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes it could be as simple as that. But what we're focusing on is more things that do use water in regards to fire protection. So the fire sprinkler systems. Realize the following, the fire sprinkler systems, what are they designed to do? I mean, you guys see these sprinkler heads, all that kind of stuff. The main intention of the fire sprinklers is as follows. First of all, is to operate automatically from heat. So if whenever there's any fire and there's heat build up because of that, the fire sprinkler systems are ready to operate automatically. Okay. The other thing is that, you guys see Hollywood movies where they show that anytime there's a fire and, all of a sudden all the sprinkler heads go off at one time. That is a false, in regards to a fire sprinkler system. Now, if you're talking about like a deluge, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that's a different story. But normally the intent of this fire sprinklers is to try to activate one, maybe two or three, kind of keep it localized where the fire is. So really the activation is, focusing on where that fire is. Okay. Provide notification, so if for some reason the sprinkler head goes off, there's water flowing because of that, there's going to be automatic notification. There'll be a flow switch, a flow alarm, alarm check, all these kinds of things that tell you that there is flow going through that system. And really the key thing is to suppress and control where the fire is, that concentration where the fire is starting. That's really the whole key of these fire sprinklers, is to fight the fire locally right at that point, prevent, the fire from spreading, prevent, hopefully not as much damage, just keep it localized and so forth. But ultimately the key thing is for fire sprinklers to save lives. Okay. So we want to control the fire so that, if somebody is in the facility where the fire is, it gives them time to get out and so forth, hopefully be able to completely fight the fire, but worst case, give them more time to be able to leave, save the lives. Okay. Now, typically when you look at fire sprinkler systems, you're normally going to hear 4 types of fire sprinkler systems. You're going to hear the wet pipe fire sprinkler systems. You have a dry pipe fire system, a deluge fire system, and a pre-action fire system. And you kind of look at that, and even under the wet fire system, you can see there's like 2 levels of categories. You may hear the industrial wet fire system and also the residential. Okay, so what are they? So if you look at I'll say an industrial wet fire system, you typically are going to see a situation where water comes in from the main, from the supply, goes into the fire system, and then from there it goes directly into the sprinkler heads. Simple as that. Okay. And you can see that the sprinkler heads, here's an example that they do have a little heat element right here. So you can see there's a little glass bulb with a liquid inside, so that if there is a fire and the liquid gets heated up, the bulb breaks and the water starts coming out. Okay. So it's a pretty simple concept. The whole idea of this wet is the fact that it is fully charged with water. So the whole system is fully charged with water, and the water is coming from the water supply. Okay. You may also have another version of the wet fire sprinkler system, and that is one that has pumps in it. So a lot of times, because of needing more pressure, water pressure, and so forth, you may see a wet fire sprinkler system with a booster pump system. So a lot of times when you look at the fire system, you go in, you'll see a booster pump as part of that whole system that's there. Okay. There may be some of these wet charge fire systems that may have additives, like an antifreeze loop kind of thing, where you could add antifreeze into the system because concern of freezing and so forth. So you may see some of that. You'll see that when it comes to the antifreeze that's added, There's two different types that you normally will hear about. One is propylene glycol and the other one is ethylene glycol. Okay. The difference between the two is one is toxic and one is considered what we'll call food grade type of antifreeze. The food grade is the propylene glycol. The toxic one is the ethylene glycol. Like I said, the propylene is less toxic. However, it is more expensive. Okay. So even though, you know, people have, you know, said, hey, use a propylene glycol because it's a food grade type of antifreeze, all that kind of stuff. The fact that this costs a lot more than the other ones, guess what eventually happens? People say, hey, this stuff is a lot cheaper. It does the same job. It keeps the pipes from freezing. Let's go ahead and put the ethylene glycol in there, which is now more of a toxic substance. Okay, so just realize when we talk about degree of hazards, things that you have to be aware of. Okay, there's also systems that do have foam injection into it. So there's a foam system as part of that. So realize you hear the word, you know, the term AAA foam. If you ever look at this, definitely a very toxic health hazard type of additive that's added to the fire system. So again, when we look about the degree of hazards, just realize some of the things that are being added into the fire system. Okay. So a lot of times, you know, if they do add foams, you'll see, you know, all the foam being sprayed on the fire and so forth. It obviously does help in fighting the fire. But as a water purveyor, your concern is the fact that they're adding, you know, a health hazard into the system. Okay. The other you know, wet charge fire sprinkler system that we're also going to be mentioned is also a residential fire system. So these are ones that are, you know, similar to the industrial one in the fact that, you know, it's taking water straight from the supply side and feeding it into the residents, to all the sprinkler heads. The key thing is there are some differences in the design, in the way the residential is made up. And because of that, there are different backflow requirements because of that. So we'll talk about a little bit more about that as we go along. Okay. One, excuse me. The other one that you may come across is like a dry fire system. So really what you see here is that you see the water coming in to a certain point. At that point, the rest of the fire system, it does not have water, it's not charged with water. The reason it's called a dry system is because it's charged with air. So basically the air pressure in the system is maintained in the fire sprinkler system to keep the water at a certain point. And then once there is a fire, what will happen is that the sprinkler heads will turn on. Initially, what will happen is air will come out until the water kind of comes in and feeds into the pipe system. Okay.